Did you know that the computer mouse is a relatively recent invention? There was a time when people interacted with their computer using only their keyboards. They didn't have a desktop, there was no icons, anything like that. When you sat down at your computer, here is what you would see. All of that stuff that we're used to seeing when we sit down at our computers today is called the Graphical User Interface, or the GUI. The story of how that was invented was really cool, but I'll save that for another day. It wasn't until the mid-'80s when Apple introduced the Macintosh, they included a mouse with that, and that's when the mouse gained widespread adoption. In fact, if you sat down at one of these in the 70s or 80s, what you were sitting at wasn't actually a computer at all. See, back in those days, computers were big, expensive, hard to maintain, so there'd be one in the building that was shared across everyone at your company. It would have dedicated employees maintaining it, and we called that the mainframe. So what you have in your office, what you have access to, is called a terminal. The terminal is where you can enter commands and send them off to the computer, and then the text responses come back. You'll hear some people call this a console. Technically, the console is the hardware, and the terminal is the software that it runs. We use those words interchangeably these days. Actually, there was a time when even that was new and exciting. The original terminals looked like typewriters. So you would type your command into the typewriter, and then when the response came back, it would type it back out for you. They called those teletypewriters with the same root as the word telegraph. What we're looking at here was called a video terminal to distinguish itself from those older teletypewriters. This is called the VT100. It's one of the most popular terminals that ever existed, and it's what the terminal on your modern computer is styled after. Notice that it doesn't have any arrow keys. We'll come back to that in another video. Even today, when we mainly interact with our computers through the powerful GUI, the terminal is still available as an option. My goal for you is that you will start to think of the GUI as one way to interact with your computer, but not the only way. Sometimes it's a really good way for interacting with your computer, and sometimes the terminal is a better option. Sometimes actually the terminal is your only option. There are some programs that only exist in the terminal, and if you want to interact with a remote computer over a network or even a virtualized computer running inside your computer, they often don't have a GUI option at all. So the terminal is an application on your computer. Technically, we call it a terminal emulator because it's behaving like those terminals of the past. So you'll type your commands into it in text, and then the response will come back to you in text. The exact program that we're interacting with here is called the shell, and it's provided by your operating system, so it might be a little bit different. I'm on a Linux machine for this video, and so the shell that I'm interacting with is called bash. If you're on a Mac, then the default shell for you is called ZSH. Some people pronounce it Z shell. I like to call it zish. If you're on a Windows machine, then it's called cmd.exe. Regardless, the interface is going to be basically the same. You'll always see a line with a little bit of information and then a space where you can type in your commands. We call this the command prompt. I'll show you an example. There's a program installed on most computers called Who Am I? It's really simple. It just tells you what user you're logged in as. So I'll type Who Am I at the command prompt, and it will right below that print out I am Chris. And then it'll give me a new prompt where I can type in my next command. And that's it. You just keep typing commands, getting responses, and then you can type more commands if you want. There are also lots of different terminal emulator programs out there for you to choose from. There will be one installed by default on your system, and it will work perfectly fine. My favorite these days is called Ghosty, so that's the one that you'll see me using for most of the videos in this series. I also have a program installed called Starship that makes my command prompt a little bit colorful and adds some helpful information. Customizing your terminal and your command prompt is deep rabbit holes that you can go down. I don't necessarily recommend it if you're just learning, but it can be fun for folks who spend a ton of time in the terminal. In case you're interested in replicating my setup, I'll give some information in the description. Hopefully now you have a good understanding of what the terminal is, where it came from, why it's important, and you're ready to dive in and start using it. If so, go ahead and click the link to the next video in my terminal series and I'll get you started. Thanks for watching.